Welcome, and thank you for joining the Workers' Compensation Management Bureau's Work Comp Part 1, The Basics webinar. My name is Tani Jo Aguirre, and I am the Workers' Compensation and Safety Specialist with the Work Comp Management Bureau under the Healthcare and Benefits Division with the Department of Administration. This is part 1 of a multiple-part series. This webinar will cover a brief history of what workers' compensation is, how workers' compensation has come to be what it is today, the type of workers' compensation we have here at the state of Montana, and the claims filing process. I'd like to give you a quick overview of what is to come from the Work Comp Management Bureau future webinars. Part 2 will cover Return to Work, Stay at Work program. Part 3 will cover the Americans with Disabilities Act in relationship to a workers' compensation claim. And Part 4 will cover the Family Medical Leave Act, or FMLA for short, with workers' compensation claims. The history of workers' compensation. The Industrial Revolution is credited for bringing workers' compensation needs to the forefront. The Industrial Revolution brought manufacturing, which meant using factories and new machines to make goods at a large scale. But it also led to hazardous work conditions. People worked in cramped, poorly ventilated spaces, facing risks such as injuries and exposure to toxic chemicals. During this time, injured workers had to rely solely on the court system to get compensation, which rarely happened. Employers had 3 laws they could use to avoid liability. These laws became known as the unholy trinity of defenses. The first law is the contributory negligence, which meant an employer wasn't at fault if the worker was in any way responsible for their injury. The second was known as the fellow servant, which prevented employers from being held liable if another worker caused an employee's injury. And the third was the assumption of risk, which stated employees knew and accepted the risk involved with their work when signing a job application. Because of these 3 laws, it was rare for injured workers to get compensation. In fact, it was so uncommon that private organizations in both Germany and England were created to offer disability insurance. In the late 19th century, Prussian Chancellor Otto von Bismarck enacted the sickness and accident laws. The Employer Liability Law of 1971 gave limited protection to workers in certain factories, such as railroad and mines. The Workers' Accident Insurance of 1884 created a modern workers' compensation system. The Public Pension Insurance gave workers with non-work-related illnesses money if they couldn't work. And the public aid served as a safety net for workers who couldn't return to work because of the disability. Bismarck's system valued employees. It covered medical care and rehabilitation costs if a worker got hurt on the job. It also created a precedent that injured employees couldn't sue their employers if they got workers' compensation. Moving into workers' compensation in the United States. It took the United States 37 years for every state to pass its own workers' compensation law. Wisconsin was the first in 1911. The same year, 9 other states had workers' compensation laws in place. In the next 9 years, 36 states passed laws. Mississippi was the final state to enact a workers' compensation law in 1948. The workers' compensation system in the United States is similar to Bismarck's. By 1949, all states had enacted some kind of workers' compensation regimen. What is workers' compensation? Workers' compensation provides coverage for employees that suffer a work-related injury or occupational disease within the course and scope of employment. An injury is defined as internal or external physical harm to the body that is established by objective medical findings. An occupational disease is identified as occurring over a prolonged period of time, sometimes even over years, such as repetitive motion, tendinitis, and carpal tunnel. Course and scope of employment refers to the range of activities that an employee is reasonably expected to participate in as part of their job duties. Coverage. There are several different types of benefits available under workers' compensation. The first one we'll discuss is medical. Medical payments cover doctor's appointments, hospital visits, and physical therapy appointments. There are no copays and no deductibles. The next one we'll discuss is indemnity. Indemnity is the result of a wage loss. Wage loss only goes into effect after the employee has missed 4 shifts or 32 hours of scheduled work, whichever comes first. Wage loss eligibility is determined by state fund and is calculated at 2/3 of the injured employee's average weekly wage. Impairment award. Impairment is determined by the injured employee's medical provider, and compensation for the impairment rating is determined by state fund. And survivors' benefits. Survivors' benefits are in place in the event of a work-related fatality. I would like to note that workers' comp does not cover stress, the employee's health insurance payments, retirement matches, or time away from work for medical appointment. Workers' compensation is the exclusive remedy for injuries and illnesses that occur at work. What does exclusive remedy mean? Exclusive remedy is a provision of workers' compensation law which allows that a worker's remedy for a work-related injury includes only workers' compensation benefits and limits or eliminates a worker's right to file a personal injury lawsuit if they are injured at work. Under exclusive remedy, the worker forfeits their right to sue their employer and instead does not have to prove negligence to receive medical care, wage replacement benefits, or other payments for their work-related injury or illness. Exclusive remedy benefits both the employer, who is protected from personal injury claims, and the employee, who immediately receives compensation for their loss without a lengthy and protracted court battle. Workers' compensation in Montana. The goal of Montana's Workers' Compensation Act is to provide medical care and income to injured workers and to protect employers from costly and unpredictable lawsuits from employees. There are 3 plans for workers' compensation insurance in Montana. Those are Plan 1, self-insurance. In this plan, the employer itself collects premiums from enrollees and takes on the responsibility of paying the injured employee's medical claims. The employer pays out-of-pocket claim costs for covered employees and assumes all financial risk. Plan 2 is private carrier. In this plan, companies can purchase workers' compensation insurance coverage through a third-party insurance company. And the third plan is Montana State Fund. Montana State Fund is the guaranteed insurer for workers' compensation in the state of Montana. This is set up for businesses who cannot find coverage on the open market due to the assigned risk of the work their employees are conducting. The cost can vary from plan to plan, but the benefits are identical. All state agencies for Montana are insured through Montana State Fund for workers' compensation insurance. Moving into the claim reporting process. When an injury occurs, the employee has 30 days to notify their employer of the injury and 1 year to file a claim with Montana State Fund. Please note, it is best practice that the employee notify their supervisor immediately or within 24 hours of the injury occurring. Seeking treatment. If the injured employee does not need immediate medical treatment, the employee should notify their supervisor and complete a first report of injury form. The supervisor should assist the employee in completing this form and submitting it to the agency's appointed workers' compensation contact for submittal to Montana State Fund. If the employee does need to seek immediate medical treatment, the employee does not need to wait to complete the first report of injury or to receive their workers' compensation number prior to seeking treatment. Once the employer is notified of the injury, they have 6 days to file the claim with Montana State Fund. Again, best practice is once the employer is notified of the injury, that the first report of injury is submitted to State Fund within 24 hours of the injury occurring. Timing is crucial when it comes down to taking care of our employees. Ensuring all forms are completed and submitted in a timely and efficient manner is vital. For agencies who have offices and workers statewide, this can become very difficult to keep track of forms when there's too much time has passed. Filing of the first report of injury. Once the form is completely filled out by the injured worker and the employer, you have 2 options to submit the claim. The first option is to fax the signed first report of injury to Montana State Fund at the number listed above on the first report of injury. Or you can submit the form electronically through the File a Claim portal section of the montanastatefund.com website. In order to submit the claim electronically, you will need the department's workers' compensation policy number. If you are unsure of what your policy number is, please reach out to the Workers' Compensation Management Bureau. Option 2 is the quickest and most efficient way to get a claim submitted and receive the injured employee's workers' compensation number, as it is auto-generated once you hit submit. Please remember, these documents contain personal identification information, or PII for short. When sharing information, it's always best practice to use a protected portal such as File Transfer Service. With all this information being said, please note every agency has a different process, so please understand your own agency's process, also known as the FROI. This is the form we just discussed that would need to be filled out by the injured worker, supervisor, and designated workers' compensation contact for your agency. Looking at the form, the top section of the form is to be completed by the employee. This section includes employee information such as name, social security number, date of birth, contact number, and mailing address. Right below the employee contact information is the accident description section. It is extremely important to be clear and give as much information as possible in this section. Please ensure the employee notes the actual location, address the injury occurred. The bottom section is to be completed by the employer. Here you'll input the department information, such as the name, policy number, and workers' compensation code number the employee's job description is classified as. Please ensure all information is accurate to prevent any delays on the claim. Again, there are 2 ways you can submit this form. The first one is via fax to Montana State Fund, and the second one is submitting it through the online portal at montanastatefund.com. Montana State Fund's internal claims process. Once the first report of injury is received, a customer service specialist may follow up if the FROI is incomplete, such as a missing signature from the injured employee. A claim number will be auto-generated. This is the number the employee will need to provide to any provider they seek medical treatment from for this injury. The claim is either assigned to a claims examiner or placed into auto adjudication. The auto adjudication is an automated system that manages less complex claims, paying for treatment without accepting liability. The Montana State Fund system will generate a letter to the injured employee that explains the coverage available, with a copy being sent to the employer as well. It will also give instructions regarding what to do in the event there are any changes in the status of the injured employee. A copy of the letter sent to the employee is available through Montana State Fund online docs portal. The claims examiner will make contact with the injured employee and employer within 24 hours of the claim being assigned to them. Compensability of a claim is typically determined within 30 days. However, this is largely dependent upon the information provided and whether there are questions surrounding the incident. In some cases, a claim may be placed into a temporary status until compensability can be determined. Compensability decisions are based upon medical evidence which support the reported mechanism of the incident, medical history, probability of injury and facts, prior claim history, witness statements, and activities outside of work. An injury must be incurred within the course and scope of the job duties to be compensable. Duties of a claims examiner include making compensability determinations, authorizing payment of medical and wage loss benefits, authorizing and monitoring medical treatments procedures, and assisting with return to work opportunities. A variety of tools are available to claims examiners, such as independent medical examinations, peer reviews, managed care organizations, vocational rehabilitation, fraud investigation units, legal counsel, medical case managers, and safety management consultants, all of which assist them in successful resolution of a claim. Claim tracking. When reviewing the 4 days or 32-hour window versus time loss, indemnity benefits are not paid until after that 32 hours or 4 working shifts has been missed. Compensation will begin on the 5th day. State Fund can review retroactive payments of the first 4 days or 32 hours waiting period if disability goes beyond 21 days. If the employee decides to seek medical treatment, they will need to provide their supervisor and the agency's designated workers' compensation coordinator with a completed medical status form from their provider, either noting a full release to duty or restrictions in order to evaluate the return to work, stay at work process. Our next webinar will cover Part 2, Workers' Compensation, Return to Work, Stay at Work process. That concludes Workers' Compensation, Part 1, the basics. Part 2 will cover the Return to Work, Stay at Work process. If you have any questions, or if there's anything that the Workers' Compensation Management Bureau can assist you with, my contact information is here. Thank you.